This is Rob Savage, the director of Host, and you're listening to the Horror Squad podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Horror Squad podcast. This is episode number 316, where tonight we are going to be talking about 2024's Out of Darkness, which is now currently in theaters. So go and check it out if you'd like. Maybe, maybe not. After you hear our review, we shall see. I am here, of course, as always, with Steve. Unfortunately, we are once again Toddless this week. He sadly lost one of his dogs this week, so our thoughts definitely go out to Todd. Very, very tough situation for him. Hopefully he will be back, though, next week. Steve, how you doing, buddy? How's your week?
It's been a week. I'm not gonna lie. I had a lot of major unfortunate events on my end as well, but I do want to send out my love to Todd and his family. You know, rest in peace to Bruce, his dog. Yeah, losing a pet, man, that's like losing a family member. You know, people who don't have pets don't understand, but those who do absolutely do understand. So yeah, my heart definitely goes out to them. And yeah, you know, I'm not going to talk about my stuff. It's really not important in the grand scheme of things. It's just the way it is, you know. Fucking winter. I hate winter so much. I'm not Canadian in that way. I just do not like when it's winter, and I feel just bad shit happens in winter. But I'm looking forward to this spring and summer where I'm moving again. I'm becoming like Todd in that respect, where I keep moving. And you know, then we got a ton of cool events that we're going to Pittsburgh in June, and then we have, of course, our Salem stuff in October. It's going to be a good year, I think. Just it started off kind of rough.
Yeah, for sure. No, that sucks. Losing a pet is the worst. So I can only imagine what him and his family are going through right now. It's tough, but I am extremely excited for all of our upcoming fun stuff this year. I'm super, super pumped for that. Living Dead Weekend. That's the first one, folks. So don't forget, June 7th through the 9th, official Horror Squad podcast meetup. It is going to be an amazing time. If you haven't already, make sure you buy your tickets, especially the 1 p.m. mall tour. Of course, Living Dead Weekend, if you don't know, takes place in the Monroeville Mall where they filmed Dawn of the Dead. So they are doing an entire tour of the mall, including stuff you can't see, like in the public eye, where they take you behind the scenes to see where they filmed some of the movie behind the scenes and stuff like that. So definitely do that. 1 p.m. mall tour on Saturday. It's a 3-hour tour, 1 to 4, and then we'll probably do the rest of the con, and then we'll probably end up doing a dinner or something like that with everybody Friday as well. I think we'll be planning some sort of dinner, lunch, or something like that as well. So come and hang out with us all weekend. Living Dead Weekend, Monroeville, Pennsylvania. It's going to be awesome. livingdeadweekend.com, I believe, is the website so you can get all the information of that, or join the Discord, of course.
Yeah, it is just to mention Creepier that they're calling it,
Yes.
which is Night of the Creeps, Creep Show 1 and 2, and also some Dawn of the Dead, of course, because it's the Monroeville Mall, so they always invite Dawn of the Dead people. They've only announced that, as of time of this recording anyway, people from Night of the Creeps, including Tom Atkins, which I'm super psyched about. Like, I've never met him. He's, you know, not a young chicken anymore, so glad I'm finally getting the chance. And they've said that they were going to start talking about the Creep Show people imminently, but they keep re-announcing the same Night of the Creeps guests, so I'm very curious who they're going to get there. Galen Ross, I think, is kind of a obvious one because she was both in Dawn, of course, and Creep Show, but
Right.
I'm curious who else they're going to get.
Yeah. I mean, Ken Foree, probably, right? You would think whoever's left of the living cast of Dawn will be there.
Yeah, probably, and then Scott Rengier as well.
Right.
But for Creep Show specifically, you know, they're Adrienne Barbeau, I would say, maybe, especially since Tom Atkins is there. You know, do a little good combo there. The dude from part 2 with the the native dude, because from Chief Woodenhead.
Yep.
So there's going to be some interesting people, I think, that could show up.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think there might be some surprises and whatnot. I bet there'll be a lot of like sort of randos that you don't really see at horror cons that maybe were in these shorts from the Creep Shows and stuff like that. So that would be cool. I'm excited for Fred Decker. I've never had the chance to meet him, director of Monster Squad and Night of the Creeps. So I want to add him to my Monster Squad poster and stuff, so that would be cool. And I want to show him that our podcast was named sort of after the Monster Squad, and we have, you know, the one of our logos looks exactly like the Monster Squad font, stuff like that. So I hope he'll at least appreciate that. But yeah, the whole Night of the Creeps, if you're a Night of the Creeps fan, this is the con to go to, because they have like essentially the entire cast is going to be there for that. So plus obviously a lot of other stuff. I mean, it takes place. I've never been to a con that takes place in a mall. Like apparently they have vacant spots in the mall where they just put vendors and stuff and the celebrities and stuff. So that'll be interesting enough. And I'm excited to see, of course, the George Romero statue that they dedicated to him after he passed. Was it before or after he passed? I think after he passed, right? They put that
Right after,
statue
I
up
think.
in the
Yep.
mall. Yeah. So that'll be cool. And just being able to sit in the food court, where, the movie took place, and maybe have a snack or something like that.
I
It'll be
think
really
the food
interesting.
court is the former arena from the movie. So when you
Mhm.
see them on the ice, that's where
cool.
the food court is now. Yeah,
That's
this is like one of my horror like pilgrimage sites, really. In fact, probably just period pilgrimage sites I always want to go to. This is like so special to me. I can't wait, and we're staying at the hotel right in front of the mall. Oh man, I'm so excited to just see it all and take it all in. And the tour is going to be so cool to see. They do a lot of stuff, of course, in the movie behind the scenes, not just inside the mall, but like in the boiler room and all that kind of stuff. So I'm really psyched about this.
Absolutely. So once again, don't forget, June 7th through the 9th, Living Dead weekend. Come join us, the official Horror Squad podcast meetup. We keep hearing a lot of people saying, come to the West Coast. You mentioned Horror Pilgrimage. Mine is the Nightmare on Elm Street house and the Halloween house, both in LA,
within walking
close.
distance, I think.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. So maybe we'll have to plan some sort of they do a lot of horror cons out there, so maybe we'll have to plan something in the next couple years out to LA for our next
Agreed.
meetup, and give those West Coast people some love as well. All right, Steve, you ready to spill a little tea this week?
I am.
Oh, you want the tea? I'm sorry. We don't serve tea. Nope. Instead, you get a cup of Joe. And now here's Joe with the news.
All righty. Thank you so much, Chuck. And here it is, ladies and gentlemen, your cup of Joe for this week. Let's start off with some really big news in the horror community. And that is, we just actually talked about this, I think, a couple weeks ago on our last horror news segment. And that is 28 years later. Of course, we knew it was getting pitched around with Cillian Murphy and Danny Boyle, both kind of being at the forefront to do this. Well, it has been acquired, ladies and gentlemen, and 28 years later is officially happening. Cillian Murphy will be producing this one with Danny Boyle, of course, back on board to write the script, and I'm sure he'll be coming back to direct as well. We'll see about that. Nothing officially in there yet. But yeah, a deal was struck with Sony Pictures. The deal details currently are unavailable, but one thing that was part of this deal is there is at least going to be a 2-movie deal. So we are going to get 28 years later, and then 28
decades later.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see 28 years later, part 2. I don't really know. So yeah, we'll see what's going to happen here. But so yeah, the deal details unavailable, but they said each movie would have a budget in the $60 million range, and a theatrical release was of great importance to the filmmakers. So this will not be, of course, a direct-to-streaming one. This is going to get a theater release. $60 million budget at least. So, it's going to be that's a sizable budget. So, it's going to be a good movie. It seems like they are going to be doing this the right way. So yeah, Steve, I know you're a big 28 Days Later fan. I wasn't on the 28 Days Later episode. That's one of the ones I missed.
Oh,
so I never really got to give my thoughts on that, but I also am a big fan of this franchise. So yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, you'll have to do it as a watch once we do 28 years later.
Sure.
Yeah, I like this movie. I thought it was really good. But the thing I liked about 28 Days Later specifically is basically when they're on a road trip, which is the first 2/3 of the movie. It's when it gets into the bigger stuff that I wasn't as big of a fan of. So I hope they kind of keep it smaller for this particular series. But hopefully Cillian Murphy does more than just produce. I'd really like to see his character return in some capacity. So yeah, I'm pretty psyched about it. It's the right people making it, so that's always good. It's not like it's some crew just taking over the name. So we'll see. I guess we'll see what happens once we get more information. But right now, I'm pretty psyched about it.
Yeah, definitely. I think I think it's a foregone conclusion. Killian will definitely be back in some capacity, acting some way in this.
I hope so.
Yeah, I think so for sure. But I'm sure he's getting a lot of knocks
Yeah,
on the door
that's
right
right, right?
now.
His stock is going way up.
Right
So
after Oppenheimer, and I think it's a foregone conclusion. He's probably going to win Best Actor at the Oscars coming up in March. So we'll see about that. A little update on Beetlejuice. It has officially been, sort of announced by the studio with release date and all that. But what we now know is the title of this movie, which is Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, which, pretty clever, of course, take on it. And I think it is now a foregone conclusion. We have to get a third one now, right? To finish the trilogy of Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. Right, Steve?
absolutely, we have to. Like, it has to be. Yeah. And we got the poster, which is
Yes.
cool. Now
Not
it's funny
impressive.
because we've had so many fake posters over the last decade. Like, you know how many times that in horror groups people are like, "Oh my god, here it is! It's coming, new Beetlejuice." And it's like, no, this is fake. This is made up. Unfortunately, a lot of the ones I saw were a lot better than the one they actually released. But maybe this is a sign of what we've been talking about for years now, where the movie will start with Beetlejuice still waiting in the waiting room, right? Because the poster is of basically a number from the waiting room. So I'm hoping that's how they start the movie. I think that would be the easiest way to explain why such a long gap is Beetlejuice is still waiting for his turn. So yeah, I'm pretty psyched about it.
Yeah, 100% agree. Burton actually already kind of teased that, I think, in one of his pictures when they wrapped up production of him kind of sitting in the waiting room chair and stuff like that. So I think that was definitely how this movie's going to open. You're right, and it's going to be awesome. Where does Tim Burton go from here, though, ladies and gentlemen? Well, we now know, as it has been announced that Tim Burton is going to be directing a new take on Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. Of course, the classic sci-fi movie, which has had a few iterations since its original release. I think he's perfect for this. I think this is right up his alley, and hopefully we see a horror out here. But Steve, I want to know who would be a great role for the 50-Foot Woman this in this day and age.
Oh man, that's like there's so many great actresses that it could be. I don't know who I'd go with, honestly. There are just such a great amount of awesome female talent these days that you could really go any way. But if I'm going to nominate one person, I'd go Samara Weaving because she can be both serious but also funny. And I think she could do like a good job of being the 50-Foot Woman. So yeah, I'm pretty psyched about it, despite the last interpretation of that movie I've seen from Full Moon 2 years ago,
Oh God.
which was oh man,
50-foot cam girl, right?
yeah, that's right. Oh God, that was bad. Actually, I don't know if you have Full Moon news on in your news segment, but
I don't actually. You got something?
yeah. So Full Moon is splitting its brand off, and I forget what the name is offhand, but basically they're having another side of their studio which is going to focus on more horror type content rather than what they've been doing, kind of comedy slash smut that they've been doing for the last like 10 years. And they said that there are 8 titles currently slated for that kind of horror side of Full Moon. So it sounds like maybe Charles Band has listened to the fans and realized that, you know what, people really miss our 90s, 80s stuff. So we'll see. I'm pretty psyched about it. Although one of the first titles they announced was bad CGI werewolves, which is like, oh man, that's exactly the type of thing Full been making already.
Right.
But I'm cautiously optimistic that maybe Full Moon will start going back to what made them famous in the first place.
Let's hope so, man. I really hope. I mean, because they were so good. They were really so good, like in the 90s or even early 2000s. And what they've just, gone into has just been, they've basically become like a way worse version of Trauma. I mean, at least Trauma, like, kind of, like makes like so bad it's good, whereas like Full Moon's just doing so bad it's bad right now.
So bad. Yeah.
And yeah, hopefully, I mean, I know the studio's not making much money and they don't have a budget anymore like they used to, but hopefully they can just turn the ship some way somehow. And because Band, man, oof.
Yeah, they just
doing?
announced a new Barbie and Kendra movie. This time they're going to the last drive-in with Joe Bob Briggs and
All
Yeah,
right.
and Darcy the Mail Girl. So I mean, I'll watch it because I like The Last Drive-In, and
Yeah.
it could be cool. But let's just say my expectations are pretty low on that one.
Absolutely. All right, now let's get into the next bit of news here, and exciting news, but probably Universal Studios' worst kept secret was officially announced, as they have announced their plans for their brand new theme park of Epic Universe. Why does this matter to us horror fans? Well, we have talked about this several times, I think, on the podcast, and that is a Horror World has officially been confirmed by Universal Studios at this new theme park. It is going to be titled Dark Universe, their take, of course, on the legendary Universal monster characters. They also announced plans for their other parks, which is going to be their other themes in this park, which is going to be a Harry Potter world, a Super Nintendo world, a How to Train Your Dragon world, and something called Celestial Park, which I assume is some sort of original
It's like the hub,
theme.
basically.
Okay, their hub, yeah. But of course, the centerpiece for us horror fans is the Dark Universe. It is said to be an ominous and chilling experience. Now, here is where I perk up a little bit with a little bit of trepidation, and that is the reimagining of the Universal Monster characters, which they did in their new video release the images of these characters. And I gotta say, Steve, I was a little disappointed when I saw these characters. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, they don't look terrible. I
Right.
wouldn't say like, oh my God, no. Like, but they definitely look different than I guess what we're used to. But until I see them in motion and on, the attractions, they didn't actually give a lot of details as to what actually is in Dark Universe. We
Right.
know Dracula's castle's in there, and we know there's a woods that could be related to the Wolfman. There are rumors that there's some kind of lagoon for Creature of the Black Lagoon. So I'm reserving judgment really until we see more specific details as to what's in that part of the park. But I am super psyched about this whole Epic Universe. I like the idea of it. So if you've been to Universal Studios in the last few years, their immersion is insane for their newer sections. The older sections, not so much, but for their newest sections, like Harry Potter, if you're a Harry
Yeah.
Potter fan, man, you're transported into that world.
Definitely.
And it's similar to Star Wars at Disney. And in this one, it's cool because when you go in, there are essentially 4 portals, and you enter into these portals, which brings you into these worlds where you forget that you're in a Florida theme park and you're into this whole like kind of universe. And I'm psyched for that. So very curious what they're going to do.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm super excited too, and I cannot wait to visit it. I know it's going to be just absolutely insane with crowds the first, year or two, but I can't wait to finally make the trek and see it all. I know that I think the big thing they're talking is a dark ride, which is obviously perfect for Universal Monsters themed. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. Like I said, I'll reserve judgment until I see them. I just wish they stuck with the original characters, but at the same time, I get it, right? Like, those are the past. They have to bring it into the new sort of generation and new thing. And if they can be scary and potentially blend to new sort of Universal Monster movies or something like that, I'm all for it. And so we'll see. Next bit of news here is the Coen brothers. The Coen brothers, of course, the iconic directors who have brought us some amazing films over the years. Fargo, The Big Lebowski, No Country for Old Men. Well, they have announced they are coming back with a new movie, and it is going to be a horror movie, ladies and gentlemen. In a recent film festival in Norway, they were interviewed, and Ethan Coen says that him and his brother Joel have written a new script together where they will once again be collaborating on. And they said it's a pure horror film and it gets very bloody. Direct quote there, ladies and gentlemen. The Coen, it goes on to say in this article too that, and I didn't even know this. So they actually did a movie called Blood Simple, which is one of their very first horror movies they ever directed, and that was a horror movie as well. So apparently they are returning to their horror roots here. To color me extremely excited for this because I love the Coen brothers. They're great. And them doing a pure horror film as they're saying it. I hope that's true. And I hope it's not just something to get in the news. I hope it is actually going to be a pure horror bloody film we get here. So we'll keep you up to date on that once we get information. But I am obviously extremely excited about this. I'm sure you are too, Steve. I'm sure you're a fan of
Yeah,
their films.
I mean, I absolutely love their work. Big Lebowski is one of my favorite movies of all time, and Fargo is amazing. Like you said, No Country for Old Men is amazing. They have a great filmography, and the thing that they do best is characters. You know, the way that they've developed their characters is, man, on another level. So I really hope that this is kind of in the same vein, but with a big kind of horror touch to it. So yeah, I'm very psyched about this one.
Speaking of immersion and horror pilgrimages that we talked about earlier, some big news has come out as this, of course, iconic Stanley Hotel in Colorado, of course, from inspiration for The Shining, of course, and whatnot. Well, they have teamed with Blumhouse, of all people, to create a horror movie fans destination. In a official release, they said, here's Blumhouse. This iconic Colorado hotel will now have a new element of fun and fright for Coloradans. I don't know how you would say that. I guess, is that what they call them these days? Coloradans and visitors across the world to enjoy, driving tourism and strengthening our economy. I look forward to seeing the exhibit, and I'm happy that our administration can help make this possible. That was from, of course, the governor of Colorado. So the plan is going to be a 10,000 plus foot Stanley Film Center exhibit space that is going to have, of course, they are saying the driving force will be horror in this exhibit with, I guess, maybe hopefully some props and some maybe thing of the maze or something like that. I don't know. It sounds like it's going to be cool. We shall see. I know some horror fans are upset about this because Blumhouse is the one sort of at the forefront with it, but I think it sounds cool bringing horror finally into what made that hotel so iconic, and kind of making it even bigger destination for horror fans is awesome. So I'm all for it.
I don't get why people would be upset about this. Like it's it's horror preservation and
Right.
no one else is doing it. So you should be happy that Blumhouse is doing it. Like, who the fuck cares how you feel about their movies if they're trying to take an iconic piece of horror history and restoring it for fans to enjoy? What are you complaining about? It's weird. It's such a it's like anything, right? When something becomes too popular, people turn on it. You see it all the time in any medium. It's very unfortunate, but yeah, I'm psyched about this. I think I wish we saw this more, to be honest. That
Yeah.
Blumhouse maybe buying all of the classic houses and not turning it into a dentist's office or whatever the case may be with these famous horror locations, and giving it back to the fans in a way by giving them the chance to live those movies. So I think it's fantastic.
Absolutely. Well, we'll keep you guys up to date once we get more information for that. Maybe a Horror Squad meetup in the future, in the following years to come. Two last things to get through here. One really quick note is that Catherine O'Hara has joined the cast of season 2 of The Last of Us. Of course, Beetlejuice fame, amongst many other things. And we will end tonight on a more somber note, as surprisingly, I think for most of us, we unfortunately lost acting legend Carl Weathers just this past week. He was 76 years old. In a statement, the family said, "We are deeply saddened to announce the passing of Carl Weathers. He died peacefully in his sleep on Thursday, February 1st, 2024. Carl was an exceptional human being who lived an extraordinary life through his contributions to film, television, the arts, and sports. He has left an indelible mark and is recognized worldwide and across generations. He was a beloved brother, father, grandfather, partner, and friend." Carl Weathers, of course, to horror fans will know him best, of course, for, being in the Predator franchise. But I mean, like they said, he's left his mark. Of course, the Rocky franchise, playing Apollo Creed. Most recently, The Mandalorian, he was in as well. Happy Gilmore as Chubbs. I mean, the list really goes on and on. So many iconic roles he has been in. Also, Close Encounters of the Third Kind as well. He was in that as well. So yeah, this one definitely hits. He was, I had the chance to meet him just a couple years ago at Texas Frightmare Weekend. Just an awesome guy. One of my favorite. The Rocky franchise I grew up on, man. So like Apollo Creed, He was just one of my favorite characters. And yeah, this one sucks for sure. And it was surprising because like he was still acting just like, very, very recently. So yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, absolutely. Same thing. I grew up on the Rocky films, so I watched those movies so fucking much when I was growing up. So much so that I recorded the soundtrack on a tape player, just playing the movie while the song was doing it. So because it was kind of complicated back then to get the actual soundtrack. And yeah, God, he's such a great actor in everything that he's been in. I had the chance to meet him at a con a long, long time ago. I'm not gonna say why I didn't, not given the recent news, but I definitely gonna miss his presence in a lot of these movies, and he's a big part of my kind of early filming uh, stuff. So yeah, he's great, and he'll definitely be missed.
Absolutely. So once again, rest in peace, Carl Weathers, dead at 76. Alrighty, well, let's get into what watch then. Stevie, what you been watching?
So I am continuing my little marathon here that I've been doing for the past 3 weeks. This is my 4th week doing this, 2 more weeks after this. And that is the Subspecies series, which I'm going through once a week. And this one, a little bit of a curveball here. So after 3, I think they intended to do a trilogy, and they went into a spin-off film, which I didn't even know happened between 3 and 4. So thank you for our listener, Caleb, pointing it out. So that's what I watched. It's 1997's Vampire Journals, which I watched over on Tubi. So this one, doesn't really have anything to do with the rest of the subspecies other than it's vampires and it's set in the same world. But the characters of both apparently meet up in part 4, which is why it was important to watch at this stage of the marathon. So this story is about, it's a vampire who's pissed off that he was turned years ago, and he's on a crusade to kill all the other vampires as a way to kind of exact revenge on the vampire kind. So he's basically a vampire hunter whilst also being a vampire. When he feeds, he doesn't feed to kill. He feeds just enough that keeps his victims alive, because he's not about turning people or killing people. So he sees this like young, attractive woman. She's a pianist, and this like kind of powerful vampire is also there, and he's kind of using her as bait to get to that other vampire. But of course, he starts falling for her, and then the other guy also falls for her, and it becomes kind of this battle between the vampire hunter and that main vampire. So he goes to a club that the guy owns, and there's some politics involved and some vampire, shenanigans. And that's basically the gist of the story. I would say this one is on par with the rest of the series, but in a different way. This one is a little bit more character driven. It's more about vampire politics, I guess you can say. There aren't as many kills. They're not as gruesome. It's not as horror, I guess, as the other 3 subspecies films, but there's still some strong story elements here. There's a lot of nudity, so if you're into that, there's no they don't skimp out on that part of it. And I think it's a good watch. I didn't find it boring or anything like that. It just doesn't, I guess, hit as hard as the other species, because I am a big horror fan. But story-wise and everything like that, I think it's worth checking out, especially if you're going through the series, because it will be important once you get to Subspecies 4. One of the vampires from this film crosses over into what happens there. So I would say watch it if you're watching the series, but it's not one I'd go out of my way to watch, especially just on its own. But you can watch it on its own, because it does stand on its own as a story, since it doesn't really have anything to do with the subspecies. So that's Vampire Journals from 1997 on Tubi. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars.
Never knew that existed. I'll tell you that much.
I only knew when I started looking at what was in the series. But like I said, I didn't know it happened between 3 and 4. So thanks, Kaelin, again,
Cool.
for letting me know that.
There you go. Nice. All right. Well, I'm trying this year to not be a complete slacker when it comes to movie watching. So I jumped on the train of that we did on the Discord there, of watching a different movie every month based on recommendations. So for the month of January, Steve's recommendation of The Swarm, I decided to check out. It's currently streaming over on Netflix. For those of you who do want to check it out, 2020 release, I believe, or 2021 release. So this one, And I do have to get on Steve's other punishment movie of I don't even remember what it's called.
Shingles.
Shingles, yes. So maybe next week I'll jump on that and be done with the punishments for now. But okay, back to The Swarm. So yeah, this one is a French film, so subtitled, and it is about a mother who is now a single mother as the father has just recently passed away. So she is trying to sort of make ends meet, take care of her children, as she's on her own now. So she decides to start breeding locusts and selling them off as feed for animals and whatnot. And yeah, so, she starts, it's a very sort of small operation to begin with, just sort of one little tiny little greenhouse, I guess you could say. And yeah, she has her two kids, and there's sort of this disconnect, I guess you could say, between her and the daughter and whatnot. And yeah, I mean, I guess it's sort of, I wouldn't say dysfunctional family setup, but not the most ideal family situation going on. So amongst all of this sort of family drama and the struggles, she comes to learn from an accident that happens is that the locusts thrive on blood. um, and from there, she starts feeding the locust blood, and she comes to find out that by feeding them blood, they thrive like crazy, where they start multiplying, they start breeding, they become, this sort of superpower where she, ends up with like 10 greenhouses or whatever. And that is where the craziness ensues, as at one point the locusts do end up escaping, and we have a swarm of locusts sort of attacking. And I'll leave it at that. This movie really is sort of it's really a psychological drama, more than a horror movie in a lot of ways. It deals with, I think the horror elements are mild in this movie. They're, at the forefront, really, it's the family sort of drama and the coping with, the death of the husband and stuff like that. And that is the important, I would say, aspects of the film that they do focus on. When the locusts do attack, it's awesome, and I wish we got more of that. I wish we did get more of the sort of horror elements with the locusts, but it's still a really good film. If you were into sort of those type of movies where sort of, the horror, I guess, takes a back seat, but it's still there. It's still a powerful movie. Obviously, I think, there's a lot of metaphors to be had in this movie. It's definitely a movie that you can really sort of, sit down and think about, which I always really enjoy those types of movies in a lot of ways. So, and at the forefront is a great performance by our lead actress, who is played by Steve can probably pronounce this better than I can, but Sulian Brahim. Does that sound good enough? I don't know.
Sure.
She gives just an amazing performance in the lead role here. So yeah, I gave it 3.5 out of 5. I really did enjoy it, and it probably would have went up more if we got a little more horror elements with the locusts. But it's pretty fucking scary when they do go out there and start attacking. And locusts are just creepy in general, right? I mean, they're at the forefront of sort of the apocalypse, right? And stuff like that. So, I mean, they're always sort of a foreboding thing in general. And you don't really see locusts in horror movies too much. So it was kind of cool to see them in this thing. So yeah, that's The Swarm. You can currently check it out on Netflix, and I'd recommend it. It was a good one.
Glad you liked it. It's one that, like, I recommend to people. I don't think anyone will ever watch it, so I just want to get a little bit more word out there. And I figured this is like your type of movie. It's
Sure.
a little slower burn, but it's also
Mhm.
like it goes somewhere. It doesn't like
Yeah.
just kind of falter. And yeah,
Mhm.
so I liked it for that as well. So my last movie this week is actually for the same reason. So now that we're February, I went into my second recommendation from that same Discord, one movie recommendation per month thing. So this one is from our buddy Eric. So thank you very much for this recommendation. And it's 2010's Stakeland, which I watched over on Tubi, but I understand is also on Peacock in the United States. So this movie is about a boy who gets into a vampire attack at his family farm, and his parents are killed by the vampire. And this kind of gruff guy takes him in and shows him the ways of how to survive in this post-apocalyptic world where vampires have taken over the United States, and they're now everyone is kind of in colonies where there are some good colonies, which are kind of these little towns that have protected borders and they help people and they try to survive the best they can. And then there are some bad colonies, of course, more culty, religious type places who just want people to serve under their god and, think the vampires are deities as opposed to villains and stuff like that. And it's about these two people kind of going through the US, trying to make it to Canada, which is like what they call New Eden. Apparently, Canada did a good job of protecting themselves from these vampires, presumably because of the cold. Anyway, we don't really know, but that's basically the journey. It feels a lot like The Last of Us, if anyone has played that game or watched that TV show. But before you scream plagiarism, StakeLand came out 3 years before The Last of Us. So maybe they stole from StakeLand. Who knows? At least we borrowed some elements, I would think. This one stars some people I don't really know, except Danielle Harris is in this as one of the people they pick up along the way. And they do pick up a few people. It's one of those movies that really move from place to place really quickly, which I enjoy because the movie is never stale because of that. They don't stay places very long. They pick up new people, so it's kind of constantly interesting. There are some great kills in this, and the vampires are fucking terrifying. And I love that. We get so many kind of softer vampires in a lot of films, especially around 2010, that it's nice to see kind of a more dangerous take on the vampires. They're really kind of strong zombies, but also vampires at the same time, so I really like the direction they went with that. The cults are also really kind of crazy. The main cult leader is just like this terrifying figure who does, really bad things. And I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I really did. Like, I would not have watched this, I think, had it not been for this initiative that we took of taking a recommendation per month. It's actually a lot like The Domestics, the one I watched in January, where it's like kind of a road trip movie where they go from place to place and meet interesting characters. This one's the same way. The only thing I would kind of knock against it might move a little too fast because you don't really get to stick around too long with each place. And it feels like this would have been a better TV show than a movie because it's such an interesting world that they build, and they could take their time kind of going to each settlement and learning kind of the politics and the ins and outs of those settlements. But I would highly recommend this. I am psyched. There's actually a second one. It doesn't seem to be reviewing as well, but I'm still going to check it out. But for this one, I think people should check it out. It's called StakeLand from 2010 over on Tubi and Peacock.
Yeah, that's one I've always heard of, but I've never watched, so maybe I'll check it out.
Apparently it got buried because of Twilight. There was such vampire fatigue at that time that they kind of just came and went, and yeah, it's too bad because I think there's a solid horror film. Kind of reminds me a little bit of like 30 Days a Night in the way that the vampires are like terrifying, and I like that about vampires. They don't always need to be these fucking well coiffed like pale romanticizers. I think it's cool once in a while to see them as kind of zombie-like creatures that are tough to kill and violent.
Nice. Well, my next one is going to be my next monthly watch, which for February, is Gothic 1986, recommended by Shaylin, aka Little 3-Chord Me. So I will be watching that sometime within the next month. So thanks for that recommendation. As far as like anything else for what watched, just a couple little things. I don't really have any movies, but I started The Leftovers based on Steve's recommendation. I only watched one episode so far, but it's an interesting, very intriguing start. And also an update on True Detective Night Country. I started that. It's only 6 episodes, so I'm at the halfway point now, 3 episodes down. This season is so different than every other season. It's a really, really horror-esque in a lot of ways. So I would think if you're a horror fan, maybe consider jumping on it because it takes place in Alaska and it has a very Thing vibe to it in a lot of ways. If you're a fan of The Thing, maybe check it out. I will say it's been a slow go to start. I mean, Jodie Foster is the lead in this, and she's just great. I love Jodie Foster. I don't really want to say much. I will just say the case is about a group of scientists at a facility that go missing. Sound familiar? kind of, in Alaska. Yeah. So, man, I don't know. I don't know what to think of this yet. It's really this show's really gonna bank on what's revealed, I think, by the end of it, because I don't know if it's supernatural elements at play or not. I don't know. And I think that's kind of turned a lot of people off from True Detective this season, because True Detective hasn't been about that in the past. It's been, more about like legit detective work, whereas right now it's kind of delved into supernatural territory. But I think it's cool. Like, why not do something different? So we'll see. 3 episodes to go. I'll give my thoughts when it concludes in a few weeks.
Cool. I'm gonna definitely check it out. I think once is all of it out yet, or is it like coming out week to
No,
week?
it's coming out week to week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll probably wait till the whole thing's out and then kind of binge. I fucking hate week to week viewing now. I'm too used to binging at this point, where
Right.
I just don't have the patience anywhere for week to week television. It's gone for me.
Right. I know they're taking next week off, I think, for the Super Bowl. So I
Makes
think it will
sense.
probably wrap up like early to mid-March is when the last episode will come out. So
Speaking of which, we talked about internally, but since Todd isn't here, I guess we'll announce it, just the two of us. We are doing our annual Super Bowl bet, where the loser simply gets a punishment film from the winners, right? This case, Kansas City versus San Francisco. Todd picking San Francisco, and Joe and I picking Kansas City.
Yes.
Is there a reason? Is that like a Sam thing, or is it you're a big
No,
Swiftie, or...
not. I mean, of course, who isn't a big
Right.
Swiftie? Come on now. No, I just watching football and stuff, man. Like this season and seasons past, like this Chiefs team reminds me of a lot of the Patriots, like dynasty years, where they just are finding ways to win, and Mahomes just the guy's a winner. The guy just finds ways to win every single year. So that's why I'm picking the Chiefs.
Yeah, and see, San Francisco is actually my favorite NFL team. And to me, by picking Kansas City, I feel like it's a win-win. So
Yeah.
I'm either happy that San Francisco won the Super Bowl because I love them, or I have a consolation prize that if Kansas City wins, at least I get to punish Todd with a movie. So that's the only reason I pick Kansas City. But I will point out that this is my 3rd time picking Kansas City, and I've lost every single Super Bowl bet where I pick Kansas City. So,
really?
Yep.
Wow.
Or went against Kansas. I've always on the
Okay.
wrong end of Kansas City bet. So
Right.
whether I pick him or don't, I always fucking lose this bet. So here we go.
All right. Let's hope you get it this time.
Yeah, we'll see.
Alrighty. Well, I think that leads us into our main event of the night, and that is a brand new release, 2024's Out of Darkness. You can check it out currently in theaters. I'm sure it will be hitting VOD relatively soon as well. But yeah, Out of Darkness, 2024, directed by Andrew Cumming, starring Kit Young, Chuku Modu, Iala Evans, and Luna Mwezi. Some tough names to pronounce there, Steve, but I think I got them for the most part. All right. So in the old Stone Age, a disparate gang of early humans band together in a search of a new land, but when they suspect a malevolent, mystical being is hunting them down, the clan are forced to confront a danger they never envisioned. Steve, can you delve on that a little further? If you like,
Man, I'll
further?
try. So this takes place 45,000 years ago, according to a little graphic we get at the beginning, and you have a group of prehistoric cave people who are migrating from wherever they used to live before into a new land with promises that they have super like awesome warm caves and fertile land and things like that. So that's basically the journey that they're on. And once they get there, they start getting attacked by these creatures, which they don't really see. They just start losing numbers from their group, and they can hear the very like guttural sounds coming from the woods and don't really know what's going on. And they also find like completely destroyed mammoths and things like that, so they know that whatever it is pretty dangerous, and they need to either keep moving on to the promised land, or they need to go back to their homeland, and that's a decision they need to make. However, the chief's son is like taken, and they feel that they need to take him back, essentially. And that's kind of the gist of the story, is them trying to get him back while surviving, figuring out what the monsters are, and deciding whether they should stay or go back to where they came from.
All right. Excellent. Thank you, Steve. All right, I'll start us off here. I was super excited for this movie just based on the poster I saw. I don't even remember what movie I went and saw, but I saw this poster hanging up at my movie theater. And I was like, wow, Stone Age horror movie? I was like, they really have never done that before. That sounds like it could be really awesome. And then by chance, we got a screener asked if we wanted to check it out. So we're reviewing this movie the day it released, just based on Todd not being in this week, as we decided to check it out. And I got to say, I did not like this movie, Steve, much at all. It was a massive disappointment for me, man. First hour, like nothing fucking happens, dude. Like I really can't wait to hear what you got to say about this. But the first hour to me was like a slog, man. Like just nothing, literal nothingness happening. Like happens. Like it's just like them trying to live in this, sort of, 45,000 years ago time. Which I might add, these people don't look like they're like cavemen really, or 45,000 years ago. Like, I think even when I sent the trailer to you guys a while ago, like Todd even sort of commented like, oh, they got like 5 o'clock shadow, or they like have like beards like that are really nicely trimmed for 45,000 years ago. So the authenticity, I don't think was quite there. I will say the movie is subtitled, though. They do speak in a language that we are to believe, which I just read actually was created for this film, so they kind of were speaking this sort of gibberish language to make it seem, sort of more authentic. But, so like, I guess like the main sort of character you follow is sort of this leader character who is sort of leading his sort of tribe here. They picked up this stray along the way who is sort of our other, sort of main character. But I don't know, like I just found myself not really caring too much about many of the characters here. They really didn't develop them, I feel like, all that well. So I really didn't care when stuff did happen. I will say like the last 15 minutes, it starts to get a little interesting, but the reveal is I fucking hated it. And then sort of the messaging about this movie, I didn't like either, because it didn't make sense to me for something. We'll get into it obviously once we get into more sort of spoilery territory here, which I think we will warn you, since this is sort of hasn't been really released yet. So for those of you that are watching it or listening the day this releases, we'll give you the spoiler warning when we get into more spoiler territory. But yeah, just a massive disappointment for me. I feel like I will say this was the first time director Andrew Cumming. This is his first sort of full length feature. And for positives wise, I will say I found it to be visually pretty good. Like I felt like, it seemed like it was shot well. And some of the visuals, although the first hour visuals are pretty boring, like, sort of the vast wilderness. But once we get sort of more in towards the latter of the movie, I did feel like the visuals did start to get more interesting, especially with sort of the landscapes and stuff like that. But the score, I thought was great. I that is the one big positive I have. I thought the score was great, but overall, man, boring. And then the twist just bad to me. But let's hear it. I just before you say anything, Steve, I feel like you're gonna be agreeing with me here, but but we'll see.
Well, yeah, I can't hide it. I'm sorry. I really wanted to like this movie. It's so fucking boring, man. Like, it was so boring. I watched it late last night and I was dying not to fall asleep. And so when we get screeners, sometimes we only get 5 watches because, they're like kind of higher profile screeners and they don't want us to like distribute it, I guess, which we wouldn't, of course. But, I get it, right, on their end. And Joe had a hard time with the screener, so he used 4 of those 5 screener. So I only had 1 shot and I had to watch it that 1 shot, right? So I couldn't fall asleep. It's so boring for the first, like you said, hour and a bit. It's a lot of it in the dark. They're not talking like any known language. They're kind of talking gibberish. So it's subtitled. There's just not a whole lot going on. They're talking about things that don't matter all that much. And I had a hard time with it. I also had a hard time with believing these were cavemen 45,000 years ago, they looked too modern to me. They look like modern actors pretending to be cavemen. And it's not until we meet, I guess, cavemen later in the film that they looked a little bit more like what you would expect. But it took me out of it. If I'm not believing what I'm seeing on screen, then it kind of hurts the movie in a way. I will agree with Joe, though, the score and the sound. So the sound of the creatures that you hear in the woods is terrifying. It kind of reminded me a little bit of like Lost, when we didn't know what the smoke monster was, and it had this kind of just crazy visceral sound that just felt scary. And I really like that part of it. I do agree the locations get better near the end of the film, but it's not like it's a visual feast, in my opinion. There's this kind of cool idea at the end where they're having their final confrontation during an aurora borealis, which gives this kind of green tint to everything. But when you actually see the aurora borealis, it's so obviously CGI to me that it's like, oh man, come on. It just didn't add to the flavor, I guess, of the movie. Yeah, I can't find a ton of positives with this one, to be honest with you. There are some good kills and practical effects at times. One in particular where this guy gets his jaw like destroyed, which I thought was a really cool take on it. And I started thinking about some theories about what this movie was about near the end, because there wasn't a whole lot going on. So I was like, maybe we're going in for a weird swerve here at the end. And I felt that there was a twist coming. When we got that twist, I was like, oh, no. And I guess that's what we're going to have to talk about. But I'll also talk about some of the theories a little bit later. But yeah, is there anything else you want to talk about before we get to that twist? Because I feel that's a big part of this whole story, right?
Yeah, let's spoiler territory, folks. So if you haven't maybe watched it yet, maybe tune out now and come back when you finally watch it. So yeah, let's get into it. The whole movie sort of centers around this sort of mystery of what is out there. The big sort of thing is a child gets, you hear all this guttural screaming and stuff like that. We're to believe there is some sort of demon monster. They say demon a couple times throughout, so we're to believe, sort of like I was thinking like the ritual, right? Like, there's some sort of fucking crazy ass monster demon thing out there 45,000 years ago that's kind of wreaking havoc on this, world. And the child gets snatched up out of nowhere, and we're like, oh shit, okay. And then along the way, more people start getting killed. Like you said, that pretty fucking gruesome death from our leader, which I thought was good. Like I thought that was a smart idea to kill him off, sort of, because it made everyone, the rest, he was their leader. And even his brother says at one point, we will not survive without you. So him dying sort of left them a lot more vulnerable to this thing. And then we get to the twist, which is, I will say this movie's only an hour and like 20 minutes long. With credits, it was like an hour 27. So really only about an hour 20 minutes. So I will say it's a pretty quick mover. Although it doesn't feel that way, like because man, it's the first hour is tough, man. But so it's literally, I actually, and I will admit this, I constantly kept looking at my feed to see how much time was left, because it was just nothing was happening. So at about the almost exact 1 hour mark is when this twist finally is revealed of what is out there. And come to find out, it's just other cavemen. Like, it's nothing. There's no monster. It's just a whole nother group of people that are out there. They snatched this kid, and they're the ones that are, which I guess makes sense. 45,000 years ago, there wasn't anything else really out there. It was just other sort of tribes or whatever you want to call them. But man, that's so fucking lame. Like, to me, I don't know. Like, I feel like this movie, they didn't know how to market this movie. And they're like, well, I guess we'll call it a horror movie. Like, it's not really a horror movie. Like, at the end of the day, like, are there some horror elements? I suppose, but barely. So, it even like teases you, like you see this thing appear out of the sort of smoke when it's, because there's that pregnant woman as well who like is trying to eat and stuff like that. And her and this other guy sort of, when we get the reveal, are out there And you see him in the smoke, this thing with a skull face on, and it sort of teases you to be like, oh shit, is this like our monster, sort of like a prey style predator type thing? And no, he takes the mask off and it's just a caveman under there. And I was so disappointed. I mean, what was your thought, Steve, when this was revealed?
Yeah, I was really disappointed as well. Now, at first, so they like unmask, I guess, one of the cavemen at first, and I thought, okay, maybe the caveman is working with the beast somehow, or something. Like they got this monster in the background because the sound he was making, because he does do the sound with his mouth, was one of the sounds that we kept hearing, but there was this other sound. It was even worse that I thought maybe there's something else that they're working with, but no, it's basically just the whole story comes down to these cavemen, that's their territory, and they're defending their territory, and they're not bad people, and they kind of show that they do take the kid, but they do feed the kid, and like genuinely seem to want to take care of him because he was a
Why?
younger boy, right? And
Why?
because
Like, that's my question. Like,
they're
why?
just showing that. I think it's like a kind of a life message where you can be on two different groups and you're both decent people, but because you want something in common, that you might both act out like monsters to get what you want, and truly in real life you're
Why-
actually
Why do they surround them and make these noises and stuff just and
to scare
snatch
them
the
off,
kid?
I think.
But why are they snatching the kid?
Yeah,
Like, why?
that's the thing, right? Like maybe they
Like
felt
they
that
snatching him to save him?
maybe,
Like,
yeah.
why? Like, so they're watching this other group or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
I know.
Right?
I trust me. I was like super disappointed by the whole thing as well. And they're trying to go for this big emotional ending where they also had killed the pregnant girl, and they have like kind of a wake for her where she's like laid out like you would at a wake, like almost not in a coffin, but on top of like a stone. And there's like they're just trying to prove that they're also civilized in a way, and just a different group that's just protecting their territory. But I was kind of disappointed because by the 1 hour mark, when I was like dying of boredom, trying to keep myself awake, I was trying to think, okay, wait a minute. So, like I said before, I feel that the group were a little too modern looking. They're all clean shaven, or mostly clean shaven.
Right.
They move in a way that doesn't feel like old, it feels like modern movement, and their pants look too modern to me. I thought maybe this is like a video game, or maybe they're time travelers, or yeah, I thought of all these things because when we see the other group, they actually look like cavemen. So I
Right.
thought maybe this group is something else entirely. They are modern people who are somehow back in the cavemen for whatever reason, whether it's time travel, whether it's a portal, whether it's I don't know, anything. So I thought maybe this whole thing was leading to this big twist where you find out that they are modern people living in the caveman era in some way. But then we get this, and I'm like, oh, this is just too plain and boring. Like, it's just.
That's why it doesn't make, and that's part of the other reason. Like, it just makes no fucking sense to me. It's like, okay, why do they look like cavemen, but these other people don't?
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, it makes no like. Okay, these people are like look like they have access to a razor or
Right.
something,
Yes.
Like,
and a fucking hairstylist apparently, because
right,
they don't have messy fucking long hair. They got like these coiffed like dudes. It doesn't make sense.
Right, and this other group like literally looks like cavemen you would see from the Geico commercials.
Right, exactly. That's exactly what they look like.
And it did not jive with me at all. And then you get into give me a break with this fucking listen, I'm all for this messaging of savagery, and you shouldn't kill other people because they're people are good. But man, 45,000 years ago, that wasn't messaging. Like, give me a fucking break. Everyone was a savage 45,000 years ago, and to like convey this message into a Stone Age horror movie, I didn't. I was like, fuck that. Like, I was not buying that. Everyone back then were complete and utter savages. They did not care about like each other back then and stuff like that. Like, I don't, I just did not even like like, is the messaging good and important? Sure. But like in a movie like this, no. Like, it's
work,
like,
yeah.
we need to be a better species. Like, okay, we already fucking know that, but like, it's, it just like, I would, I don't blame the girl, and like for killing the, the other one at the end there, and the kid's like, they tried to fucking feed me and blah blah blah. Okay, but why'd they fucking snatch you and then like out of fucking nowhere, like in this like terrifying situation just to take care of you? Like what? Why? Like like you already have your sort of tribe that's protecting you. Why the fuck are they coming out of nowhere? Like that's why it's like I don't. Like it needs to make sense, right?
Mhm.
And that's why I feel like it's like they give you like this rug and then completely sweep it from under you, like it just didn't make sense. Like they're like giving you all these teases that there's something out there, these like crazy ass like monster things, and no, and then you like give me a reason for it, and they don't even give you like a reason for why these other like people are coming and sort of fucking with them, because there wasn't like you said, because they went into their territory. Okay,
Mhm.
so they in fucking real life, they're in 45,000 years ago, they're just gonna go and fucking kill you while you're sleeping. They're not
Right.
gonna fucking make these crazy
Play
ass
games.
noises. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So it's just, yeah, I mean, it just pissed me off.
Yeah, you're right. It would be a full out attack. Like these
Yeah.
people are on our land, we're gonna kill them all, and possibly eat them because there is a cannibal
Right.
subplot that doesn't really go
Kind
anywhere. I
of,
don't really
I
know
guess.
why.
Well, it's like, right, it's all about the mess. This movie's all about a message,
Right.
right? Like the director had this message of we shouldn't be savages, we should take care of each other. Which, sure, yeah, but back then, no. And it's, they were starving and whatnot. The guy was dead, and it's like, why waste meat? Let's eat each other. Let's like eat them, which makes sense to me. They did it. They did it alive, right? I mean, that was like, which was a true story, and that happened in like the 60s. When you need to survive, you're going to survive. So yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, they just remade that movie Alive like recently.
They did, yeah.
It's
I
on
watched
Netflix,
it.
I think. Oh, did you?
Yeah,
Was it good?
yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it
doesn't
was
add
like
anything,
I've
right?
seen a lot. It doesn't add
Yeah.
anything. It's basically Alive, but just obviously it's not an American version of
right.
it. It's but it was good. But it's like watching Alive kind of again. So it wasn't. I wouldn't recommend it. I guess it's a good movie, but nothing like crazy great. But yeah, back to this movie. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just dumbfounded. Like with like the like I'm kind of mad that they would you classify this as horror? Because like after watching it, I'm like, I don't know. Like
I would say it's horror because
Mm.
a lot of it's in the dark. You think it is monsters. You hear this. It's like suspense. It's
Right.
got big kills at times, not a lot, but it has some. I would classify it enough to be a horror
I
film.
guess.
Like
It's like
I'd
Home
put it on my
Invasion.
horror list, right? Yeah, it's kind of a home
Right, yeah,
invasion.
yeah.
I mean, obviously, it won't make my my top of the horror list, but
No.
I would definitely put it in my horror list as something that as a contender.
Right.
Yeah, and there's this whole subplot that I was kind of losing the kind of point on, where they think the girl's a demon at some point, and they're like about
The
to
Stray?
sacrifice. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's more about like the paranoia and stuff.
Yeah.
They also like went into the whole sort of she's a woman, so her only sort of purpose is to sort of procreate.
Right.
And, because she gets her period at one point,
Right.
for the first time, and they're like, "Well, you have a purpose now." Blah blah blah. And the guy even becomes like a little rapey at one point, which is weird
Yeah.
because I think she's like obviously she's only like 13 years old or whatever.
Right.
Which I mean, obviously back then I'm sure it was
Sure.
happening and stuff, but I just don't even understand sort of
Why show that?
why that
right?
was even necessary,
Yeah.
honestly, in some ways. So like, yeah, like to me, like a lot of this movie really didn't serve much of a purpose to me. And then, yeah, so I don't know. It I think they should have just made it a monster movie. I think it would have been way cooler if
I
you
agree.
went the actual horror route and gave us some sort of monster at the end of it. And I think most horror fans are gonna come out of this feeling the same way and be pretty disappointed when they
Yeah,
actually
it should have been a
watch it.
double swerve. Like reveal that some of them are like people, but then have that they're also attacking like these dangerous monsters. Or
What if like what if at the very end like the monster comes and kills them all, right?
Yeah,
Or something like
exactly.
that,
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
that would have been cool. Yeah, like completely like throw you off or whatever, but
Yeah.
just what they gave us.
And
was just,
then
man,
it makes sense
tough.
to steal the boy. They were trying to protect him from the monster in the
Sure,
in the
yeah.
woods,
Yep, yeah. That would have been cool.
Anyway, and yeah, it's a it was bad, unfortunately. It's just
Yeah.
the way I don't see this doing well in theaters at all.
No.
It's gonna get that initial like horror push at the beginning where people are curious, and then once word gets out of what this is like, I don't know. It's got a pretty solid score on Letterboxd. It's like a
2.9 currently
which
sitting at
is
Letterboxd, but that's also from not many
festivals.
reviews, obviously festival people and whatnot.
Festival scores are always higher than
Yeah.
once they come out to the
Yeah,
mass public.
We'll see. I'm interested to see how this does once the masses do get out and see it. But yeah, I think that's really all I got, Steve. Should we
Yeah.
rate this, or you got anything else?
No, that's all.
Oh.
So I'm very curious just how low it is for you.
Yeah.
What do you rate this?
Man, it's a slog, man. The first hours just I was like, when the fuck is something gonna happen? Like, and I'm all for slow burns. You know me. Like I like slow burns, but literally it was nothingness for like a solid hour. Like literally nothing. Like them just sitting in darkness or sitting in fire. There was some decent moments of tension when you did get it. But then once you get to the reveal, it's just so utterly disappointing. I will say, like, I did enjoy though, like we didn't really get into it, but I didn't mind sort of the end sequence when they finally did sort of battle each other and kill each other. I thought was kind of cool. Like I thought it had some moments. Yeah, I'm not gonna give it like extremely as low as you probably would expect. I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 5 because I do think the score was great, and although it was a complete slog to get through for the first hour, I don't know, like I disliked it a lot and I had issues with it, but like a 2 out of 5 is pretty bad to me. Like, once I start getting under that, it's like horrible territory. And I do think technically speaking, it was shot like, it was like shot by someone who knew what they were doing. And it's just, yeah, I mean, but it's just a massive disappointment for me still. So I would definitely don't recommend it. And I give it a 2 out of 5.
Yeah, I'm in the same range as you, but a little bit lower. I give it 1.5 out of 5 for the same
That's where I was
reasons.
teetering.
Yeah, it's shot well, good score, good sound, some interesting moments, but overall, this is so forgettable.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm bummed out that this didn't pan out because, like you said, there isn't really any good, horror from this era. So it's too bad. I thought this could hopefully be it, but I kind of agree with. I don't know. You said Sam didn't like the trailer. I wasn't a big fan of the trailer either. I just thought maybe they're trying to hide stuff in the trailer. I thought it was a little too dark and not a whole lot going on. Turns out that's what the movie is like. So
right.
Yeah, 1.5 is my final score on this.
And I assume Todd would probably hate this.
Oh my god,
as well.
he could be a half star on this.
Yeah.
No, he would not like this one either.
Yeah. So there you have it. 2024 so far. Not to one okay one. We've done 2 so far, and I guess 1 for 2, sort of.
The interview we did last week had a pretty.
Oh,
good
that's right. Here
to
for
it.
Blood.
So
Yeah.
Even though we didn't do
right.
it as a feature review, which comes out actually the same day as
it does
this
comes
one.
out today. So watch Here for Blood instead. Yeah. Yeah. I think horror fans will enjoy that one a lot more than this one.
Agreed.
Alrighty, well, that is going to be, I think, about it for this week's episode. We hope you enjoyed our review of Out of Darkness, currently in theaters, but obviously Steve and I both say do not waste your time seeing it in theaters. Maybe wait for a VOD at best if you are going to force yourself to watch this one, but I think we both agree, just skip it altogether. Next week, what do we got, Steve?
We are celebrating Valentine's Day, a day or two late, but whatever, by doing another. So this is going to be an annual tradition for us, I think, to do like a Valentine's Day movie. And this year we're picking one that I haven't seen since, God, mid-90s, maybe. So I'm really curious. And that is My Boyfriend's Back. So a romantic sort of horror comedy with a zombie boyfriend that comes back from the dead. So I'm curious to see how I feel about it. Hopefully better than we did last year with When I Married an Ex-Murderer.
So I Married an Ex-Murderer. Yeah.
Right.
This one has definitely more, I would say, horror elements based on memory, because man, I don't remember much about this. My Boyfriend's Back, 1993, comedy with horror elements for sure. movie there. Currently, what I'm seeing, it looks like a $3.99 rental over on Amazon Prime. So, you know, if you want to spend a little money, or I'm sure there are other ways to find this. It could be on YouTube for free for all I know. I don't really know, but we're currently not free streaming anywhere, but $3.99 rental, or, you know, I know there are other ways for you people to find it out there. So go and check it out for next week's review. In the meantime, you can keep up with the podcast on our socials: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Threads. Just search the Horror Squad Podcast. You can email us anytime, the Horror Squad Podcast at gmail.com. But of course, the absolute best way to keep up with the podcast is our Discord, completely free to join. Amazing community over there. It's linked on our Instagram, or just send us an email or DM through our socials, and we will get you a link to join our Discord. You can also purchase merch anytime, tpublic.com. Just search the Horror Squad Podcast. A lot of great stuff over there. And if you'd also like to support the podcast, leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast app. Don't forget, important dates: Living Dead weekend, June 7th through the 9th, Monroeville, Pennsylvania. You can get your tickets, livingdeadweekend.com. We are doing the 1 p.m. mall tour. That is the important thing to note when buying tickets. So come and join us on that. And October 11th through the 13th, Hocus Pocus weekend in Salem, Massachusetts. We are co-hosting that event with the cast of Hocus Pocus and our other collaborators. So come and join us for an amazing weekend in Salem, Massachusetts in October. It's the place to be. Obviously, if you haven't booked your hotel yet for that, if you plan on coming, book your hotel. Even if you don't end up coming, you can cancel it. But hotels are getting harder and harder to come by the more you wait for that. So definitely grab that. Tickets not on sale for that yet, but you can head to, it's just a bunch of Halloween.com for updates and information on that. But of course, we'll keep you updated on Discord before the website. We give you firsthand information first, so you can do that. I think that's about it. So we'll see you next week for My Boyfriend's Back. See ya.
Bye.